So yes, please think you can go. Ladies first. So we have one lady with us. You can start.
Sure,
Then
sure, Sunil. Yeah, thank you. So I'm Indu Bansal. I work with EY. I have total 14 years of experience, majorly in reserving. I've worked across US, UK, and other regions. Um, like overall 14 years of experience, 10 years with EY and 3 years with Genpact. Right now, I'm handling Bermuda region.
okay.
Um, I'm associate from IFoA. I did appear for SP8 in September attempt, but
Okay.
could not clear it.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I'm assuming you also have SA3 left.
So I have all these three left: SP7,
SP7,
SP8,
SP8,
SA3.
SA3.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. So I didn't write exams for quite a long time, like 4-5 years. Um, I was expecting, and then I had my baby, so I took the break, and now I'm back
Back.
to my exams. Yeah.
So FYI, even I had a break in my journey. So I had a 4-year break, and that was because I had a startup, and I couldn't
Yeah.
concentrate when I had my startup. So it was
Yeah.
literally a 4-year break. So yeah, it is possible. It takes a little bit of effort, but
Yeah.
definitely. Yeah.
So you can say that it is a startup for me as well, as I'm a
Yeah.
first time mother.
Not very different. Very different,
Yeah.
but not very different.
Yeah.
Next, Utkarsh, you can go.
Hi everyone, I'm Utkarsh. I live in London. So we've been here past 20 years. I work for Brit Insurance, which is the Lloyd's of London, basically, Lloyd's market. And yeah, I've been with them for 3 years now. And the journey exactly, but we still carry on. My main focus has been pricing. So I've been mainly on the pricing side. I haven't had much experience with the reserving besides just the basics in the exams and the few exercises here or there.
Okay, understood. And so you're also going for the IFoA.
Yes, I'm with the IFoA.
Okay. And Divyansh?
So hello everyone. I'm currently working in accidents and I have a total experience of around 1.75 years
Okay.
now. Uh, and I'm basically priced. I'm working with accidents right now in US market,
Okay.
handling general liability there and doing pricing for the team.
Okay. Okay. And you work under Dilip Arya's team, is it?
Sorry.
You work with Dilip Arya or you work with somebody else?
Yeah. No, I am under Sachi.
Okay.
She's beneath Dilip. It's
Yeah.
herself.
Dilip is the head of
Yeah.
he's
Yeah.
the head of the country, so I can assume.
Mhm.
All right, good. All right. So 1 minute. Let me just open. So you are also applying for IFoA, I am assuming.
Yes, I am applying for IFoA, but some paper couldn't clear CP1 the September attempt. So let's see how let's see how I plan my next paper. So
Un
still attending the orientation.
okay, understood. All right. Okay, give me 1 minute. I will just open the. I'm just transferring the PPT onto my Mac, which is a little getting to be a little more difficult than I previously. So my OneDrive got disconnected, and this is resulting in a lot of confusion.
Yes.
I hate the Mac, but unfortunately. Oh, it's still uploading. Okay. For some weird
Have you
reason.
worked with Dilip as you have directly
I
mentioned?
have not. So I have not worked with Dilip. I've not had the opportunity to work with Dilip, but I did get SA3 tips from him. So what had happened was, I think I can. So I was struggling a little bit with SA3. I was missing out. I was missing out by a couple of marks here and there. And the one paper I really did badly. I got like, I was off by 10 marks or something like that. So Dilip had actually put out a post on LinkedIn saying, like if anybody wants assistance with SA3, you can just ping me. And I had pinged him. So he graciously
Okay.
he graciously offered about, I think, an hour. And he went through a lot of the issues that I was facing with SA3. It was more on exam technique and things like that, right? So at least that helped, definitely helped. And I cleared the paper in April of this year. So I became a fellow this
Okay.
year. So yeah, so I'll start until the thing loads, So I'll start a little bit about myself. I have about 14 years of experience total, spanning across data analytics and insurance and insurtech. So I worked in actuarial teams and I worked across the insurtech value chain. And I recently qualified as a fellow. And my journey has been, it started off and then, like I said, it tailed off in the middle and then I picked it up again. And then, so it's been all over the place, but highlights of my journey have been, I was the topper for SP7 and SP8. I think September 2021 and April 2021, or I don't remember which diet, somewhere around those diets. You have to, I think it's on the website, so you can go check it if you want. So, struggled a little bit with SP8, so I understand where you guys are coming from. So I've gone through the struggle myself. I understand what is required to go through and what are the big issues that people go through, because I myself have gone through it. And I can definitely empathize with a lot of the people who are giving it for the second, third time. Over the course, especially for the SP8 paper, I will give you tidbits on what happened with me, right? Which sometimes you'll be like, how the hell did this happen, right? So lots of bad luck, lots of misses, near misses. I failed SP8, I think like 6 times or 7 times or something like that. And out of those, 7 or 8 times that I wrote, I think I would have failed by 1 mark, maybe 5 times, right? So so such things happen. Such is the luck of the draw, as we say. And these things happen when you're on your fellowship journey and you have to bite through and you have to pull through and you have to go through. So 1 minute, it's downloaded. So let me just go and let me refresh. Thank you. Now it's uploaded. Yes. Now I have to download it from here. This is another challenge. Cool. So how much? So I know that there is quite a little bit of reserving background over here, but just by a show of hands, how comfortable are you guys with reserving techniques? Like general reserving techniques. Have you guys done? Okay, so yeah, I know I would have expected Indu to have done it, but Utkarsh and Divyansh, have you done any reserving this thing in your lines?
So it's been minimal. I'm familiar with the techniques and just the
Okay.
general terminology around it.
Okay.
The actual reserving work I've done has been on discontinued lines of business, though
Okay.
it wasn't, I would say, a proper reserving exercise to say you're actually coming up with assumptions and going through it properly, but
Okay.
the general terminology, and I know my way
Understood.
around.
Understood. But I'll be frank, reserving SP7 is not just reserving. Reserving is only one part of it. And just hold on, let me screen share this. I'll open the slideshow. Perfect. Right. Let me open this. Share. Perfect. I apologize for me becoming an uncle. Okay. So like I mentioned, SP7 is not just reserving. There are 4 major components. If I may say 3, but then one gets clubbed into capital modeling, right? So there is reserving, then there's capital modeling, and an offshoot of reserving and capital modeling is asset liability modeling. And the biggest thing after that is insurance accounting, right? So it's basically an amalgamation of 4 different things that you do in core actuarial teams, apart from pricing. And it's voluminous, but if you have enough practice, you'll be able to kind of breeze through a lot of the topics that are there, right? And we'll go through each of those separately. So how can I choose? Just hold on. I think, can I? Uh, can we not have the annotations? I think somebody's drawing on the.
Sorry, my screen was stuck. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. All right, perfect. Okay. So if you attempted any SP7 paper before, you would know this for sure, but let me just go through one overarching point, which I tell all students when we start. It is, how is an SP paper different from a CP, CB, CS, or a CM paper, right? The first point has to do with specialization. SP papers have a lot more emphasis on specialization of a particular subject that most of the core papers don't have. So think of it as your core papers as your diploma and your SP papers as your master's level paper, right? This is the exact differentiator. And your core papers are usually generic in nature or offer an introduction to the subject that you're studying. For example, I don't know what is, I think it is CS1, right? Which is the CT6 equivalent. So if you take a look at the CT6 equivalent paper, you would have gotten an understanding of general insurance reserving techniques. You would have gotten an understanding of GLMs and things like that, right? But when you come to the SP7 and SP8, sorry, when you come to the SP7 and SP8 uh, paper, it is a lot more in-depth and it's a lot more challenging because it's more in-depth. And this is something that a lot of students don't understand when they give those papers, because when you give it for the first time, you have to change your mindset from being someone who can give general points to someone who can give very specific points. And that's something that is very difficult to attain. And hence you see a lot of people who struggle to go from CS or CM or CP to SP papers, right? The exam questions also reflect the fact that you need to have a deeper dive of the topic that you're studying. And the institutes, whether you're giving it from India or whether you're giving it from UK, they expect students to have a very sturdy and in-depth understanding of the topic in question. So the reason for this kind of makes it very, very like the specialized nature of the SP papers is where students find a lot of difficulty, right? The next one is with respect to complexity, right? The questions and answers for any C-level paper does not require a lot of depth. Whereas when you come to an SP level paper, you have to provide a lot of depth. Most of the papers that you attempt will no longer have intense calculations that you will have to kind of generate, right? For example, you would have done I think CM1 or CM2 is the CT8 equivalent, right? Where you would have probably done stochastic calculus, where theoretically it's very computation intensive, and you would have gone through a lot of the so you would have gone through a lot of the things that are required, proofs that are required, and it would have been intellectually taxing. SP7 and SP8, they're not intellectually taxing per se, but they are complex. And your answers have to have more content in them for you to get marks, which is not something that you would have had to worry about in your C-level papers. The next one is with respect to subjectivity, right? the SP papers, especially SP7 and SP8, I cannot talk for the other SPs, but SP7 and SP8, I can vouch for it. They have a great amount of subjectivity in the questions that are asked. And the point, it is, the subjectivity is baked in, right? It's priced into the paper because they want answers which are also reflective of actuaries who can account for the subjectivity. And there is therefore a lot more thought that is required to be put in when you are answering questions. So exam questions are often more difficult to answer and they require kind of careful planning. And the challenge here is that you have to plan while you write the paper in 3 hours and 20 minutes. So if you are able to master the material, and then if you're able to do this on the fly, you basically have the winning equation to pass the paper, right? And finally, the last but not the least, marking. And this is somewhat of a personal opinion that I hold. I don't know whether any institute or any marker is going to agree to this personal view that I have, but this is a personal view from seeing many diets, seeing many question papers, getting mark sheets from multiple attempts, seeing what works and what does not work, right? My opinion is that ever since the exam has gone online, the marking has also become slightly different. It's become a lot more, what do you say? They expect a lot more from your answers of late than when, it was paper-based, when it was pen and paper-based, right? Where I felt that they would have given, so perfect example, let's take a 4-mark question, right? And it is my sincere opinion that in the pen and paper method, they would have given more generous marks for answers which were maybe slightly poorer than in the online format, primarily because in the pen and paper, you have to decipher handwriting from students, which is very difficult to do. So the benefit of the doubt went to the students. But with the online structure, the benefit of the doubt is no longer with the students, right? It's with the examiners. So they're able to quickly see what your answers are. You have typed it, right? You've put it as a typed answer. So they're able to see what your answers are. And because of that, marking has become slightly more stricter, right? Than when it was with just pen and paper, when, people used to give a lot of leeway for students because, for example, there have been time pressures, handwriting would have, probably gotten them slightly higher marks or lower marks. So there were a lot of other soft factors which are there in the pen and paper method, which currently does not exist. All right. So let's come back to the paper. Let's look at what the subject is all about. And like I mentioned, the 3 major things. 4, if you consider ALM as a separate entity. One is reserving, the other one's insurance accounting, and the other one's capital modeling. And I've given this in the order of importance that I feel, which with respect to questions being asked, right? So what would we be looking at when it comes to reserving? We'll be looking at techniques that help us in determining the best estimate reserves for a general insurance company. So we'll first understand what are the different types of reserves in a GI company. Then we will go through what basis of reserving means, and we'll go through all the relevant bases that are used commonly. Then we'll go through the current techniques that are used in reserving, which includes both analytical techniques and stochastic techniques, where we will see how to obtain these estimates using these various different techniques and using the basis that we have assumed in the start of the exercise. In insurance accounting, we will be looking at building, we'll be looking at building the revenue account and the profit and loss account and the balance sheet for an insurer, and look at how these reserves that we have estimated impact the company's financial ratios. So once you have estimated the reserves, the next question is, how will those reserves that you've estimated impact the company's balance sheet and impact the company's profit and loss statement, which is what this entire insurance accounting section is about, right? And in order to do this, we'll go through the basics of insurance accounting and the rules that need to be followed. We will also go through some live examples, which we will solve in real time. And this is a very important juncture to say this, that insurance accounting is often completely ignored by a lot of students because they feel or they think that it is very difficult. However, this is perhaps the easiest section and perhaps the most interesting section if you are even remotely, even if you're a little prepared, you'll be able to kind of breeze through the entire section. And this gives you the highest bang for the buck, right? With respect to the highest mark that you can get. 1 minute. The highest mark that you can get for the lowest amount of time that you can spend, right? So very interesting thing that we will be looking at. And finally, we'll do capital modeling, where we will look at techniques that are used to estimate the capital requirements for a GI company, which has a particular risk appetite and a risk tolerance. So we will effectively, with capital modeling, we will lay the groundwork on the different types of risks that are there. We'll go through all the different risks that an insurance company faces. And this particular groundwork is extremely important for both SP7 and SA3. So what you study in SP7 and SP8 will form the basis of your education that you use in your SA3 exam. They're completely linked. So think of it as the body and the soul, right? They're linked. Think of one and think of the other. And that's exactly how SP7, SP8, and SA3 are linked together. We will basically look at all the methods that are there to determine capital adequacy for a company. And we will then see how potentially things like diversification helps and what are the things that insurers can do. So capital modeling is fairly a newer idea that has come into the general insurance world. So a lot of the material is slightly vague. So you'll have to do a little bit of extra reading, but it is not something that is rocket science. It's something that you'll be able to easily pick up. And it's something that, very interesting area to work in if you are interested in risk or risk management. So if you have any ideas of pursuing SP9, this is like a good introduction to SP9. This particular section is a great introduction to SP9. All right. Now let's take a small look at pass rates. I have not updated this, so give me some leeway over here. But yes, pass rates have been fairly stable for SP7. I think 2020 and September 2020 and April 2020 were anomalies. But I have noticed, one thing that I've noticed is that the paper questions for SP7 are becoming slightly difficult over the past few diets. Especially if you have you guys taken a look at the previous diet that was there? The SP7 September 2024 diet. Has anyone taken a look at the questions?
I did.
And how did you feel the questions were?
It is like getting very difficult now.
Right. Fair
Yeah.
enough. Fair enough. I would not say very difficult. I would say more difficult than the past, right? So there is
Yeah,
also the
I
fact.
mean,
Yeah,
I think it's like the lengthy as well because the questions are quite lengthy.
I don't know if I would agree with lengthy, but I would definitely agree with more difficult. However, one thing that you have to note is that they're going back to the proctored exam now,
Yeah.
right? So we don't know how the answers are or how the questions are going to be structured because now it's no longer an open book exam. So I would expect some level of some level of standardization that will come in at least with respect to April 2025. I don't know why this is happening, right? Some level of standardization that will that would come here in April 2025, but I don't think there'll be a lot of change in the pass mark. So average pass mark over these diets has been 61%. Pass rates have been around 40%. So in my opinion, you should always target for a 65 for SP7 and SP8 and a 70 for SA3 if you want to pass, right? Because SA3's pass mark is 65 usually. And 60 to 63 is what the pass mark for SP7 and SP8 is. And hence always aim for 5 marks more to add to your buffer. Okay. We've gone through all the SP7 things, right? With respect to weightage. So let's take a look at how things are going to be structured. So about 20% of the marks will come from questions based on products and general insurance products, to be more precise. 15% will come from risk, uncertainty, and regulations. About 1/3 or 30%, let's say, not 1/3, 30% of the paper comes from reserving, and about 18% of the paper, the remaining 18% are capital modeling questions. So reserving the 30% also accounts for insurance accounting and ALM. However, I think these are just guidelines. The institute does not follow this actively. So there have been some diets where the question paper has been heavily reserving based. There are some diets where there was a accounts question for 30 marks, and then there was a reserving question for 15 marks. So you've got like heavily accounts based. So these are just guidelines, so I would take them with a pinch of salt. However, these give you a good idea on what to expect, right? Finally, with respect to the assessment, right? The type of questions that you will get from an SP paper, about 1/4 of the paper are knowledge-based questions, right? And what do you mean by knowledge-based questions? Knowledge-based questions are questions where the IFoA expects to test your knowledge in a particular area of a subject, and they are testing your ability to recall that particular area of subject verbatim and answer and put your answer, right? So there is no thought over here. There is no analysis that is required. Knowledge-based questions basically means, do you know or can you recall what has been entered in the acted text? So this is your rote component of your paper, right? About half the paper will be application-oriented questions. And these, I like to call these the first derivative of knowledge questions. What do I mean by the first derivative of knowledge? So d by dx of knowledge gives you application. So what do you mean? What do I mean by that? The institute asks you questions where you have to take material from the book and then you have to apply it to a particular scenario in order to get marks, right? So an example would be, they would probably give you a scenario and they would ask you to identify different things that you can do to limit the liability of a particular insurance policy. So now that you have gotten knowledge on what are all the things that can limit liability from your insurance products chapter, you'll be able to use that to fit an answer to the particular scenario that they've asked in order to get marks, right? The remaining 1/4 is basically higher order skills. And I like to call it the second differential from knowledge or the first differential of application. So d square by dx square of knowledge or d by dx of application gives you higher order skills. And what does higher order skills expect from, what does the institute expect from higher order skills questions? Higher order skills, like basically the institute expects students to apply, synthesize, and evaluate actuarial knowledge in real world scenarios. So there is a difference between application and knowledge, where in application you're fitting it to, fitting something from knowledge to a direct scenario. Here you have to also add your inputs and make it more real world in a sense of speaking, and basically goes beyond your basic knowledge, goes beyond your textbook, and it basically requires you to have a deeper understanding of the concept and a deeper uh, ability to get to a answer which an actuary would say, yes, this is a good answer, right? So that's what they're looking for. And usually, if you look at any question structure or answer marking structure of an SP7 or an SP8 paper, usually you will see that higher order skills are the lowest average mark that you'd get, right? So if you look at the exam markers guide, right? If you look at the higher order skills question answer and you'd see the notes, you'll see that this question was very poorly answered. So very, very normal to see students do very poorly on this. However, if you have enough practice, you'll be able to actually get a lot of marks from higher order skills. This is something that you can easily score from. Remember this. Okay, I'll ask a general question. How many minutes do you have per question or per mark? Does anyone know this?
2
How many?
2 minutes per mark.
You don't have 2 minutes. How do you have 2 minutes?
We have 3 hours 20 minutes, so it's 200
Perfect.
minutes.
Okay. So how many? Okay, I'll ask you this question. How many minutes do you take to read the paper first?
Like 15 minutes around.
So how do you have 2 minutes per mark? If you're taking 15
Yes.
minutes to read the paper, how do you have 2 minutes per mark? You don't,
Mm-hmm.
right? So that 2 minutes is a misnomer. It's not 2 minutes. So you should ideally allocate 1.8 minutes, right? 2 is a good approximation to make. It's a rule of thumb. I agree, but the correct answer is 1.8 minutes. Even I use 2 minutes. I'll be frank with you. When I say, okay, you know, for in local, when we're speaking colloquially, when we're speaking freely and informally, right? If there's a 4 marker, I'll tell you need to do it in 8 minutes, right? That's how I generally set the time. But in reality, it's not. You have only 1.8 minutes, and you have to allocate the additional time for reading through the question paper first, so that you can structure which ones you're going to attempt and which ones you're not going to attempt, right? Or which ones you're going to attempt last and which ones you're going to attempt first. So reading through is something that you have to spend time on. And one more important thing that you have to spend time on is maybe 2 minutes before you submit the paper, where you go through the exam answers that you've written once, right? You need at least 2 minutes, maybe more than that, to just see if you miss some big point somewhere and see if you can get quick marks here and there, right? So you have to give that time as well, and hence, ideally speaking, you have about 1.8 minutes. Clear? Clear, not clear? Please let me know, and I will be able to.
Yeah, clear.
Yeah, clear. Okay, perfect. All right. So what are we going to do in the course? And this is where I'm going to be deviating for this diet slightly, because I want students to use the live class to focus more on exam technique and discussion based answering of questions, right? So what we are going to do is we will be giving you targets that you have to hit during the week, where we would have already gotten the live class, we would have already gotten one of the recorded class of the material that has already been posted. So the pre-read for you is already there. The uh, the material is there, the content is there, and we will expect you to work on the videos, see the videos, consume the videos, and make sure that you're up to speed on the theory that we are going to discuss at the end of the week. And when we discuss the, like when we have the live class is just going to be discussions and focus on exam techniques, right? And what do I mean by focus on exam techniques? It's going to be hardcore practice. So for example, when we are discussing reinsurance, we will be solving questions on reinsurance, either from past papers or either from questions which I have created myself, right? Which I will be very frank, are going to be much harder than the questions that you will face. So the idea here is to expose you guys to a question difficulty level that is much harder than what you would face in the exam, so that when you go and face the questions in the exam, you don't have as difficult a path and as difficult a time in the exam, right? So that is a simple approach that we are going to take, and we will be floating the structure of the, or the things that we are going to do at the end of the week, at the beginning of the week. So you'll have 1 week to kind of come to speed and effectively contribute in the class. So I'm expecting everyone to contribute in the class. I don't like dead silence from students. So even like I keep telling every diet that I've done, make sure that you get, sorry, make sure that, you make all the mistakes here, and it is in your best interest to make all the mistakes here. When you make all the mistakes here, you will not make any mistake in the exam. So if you are, please do not be afraid to give even the worst answer that you can give, right? The worst answer that you can give is infinitely better than not giving any answer. Because that at least tells you, or at least gives you a directional pointer that you are wrong, and it helps you, it helps you correct yourself. So I will be brutal when I correct your answers here, right? I will tell you whether you're right or whether you're wrong. And if you're wrong, I'll tell you why you're wrong. If you're right, I'll tell you why you're right. So please use me as a tool to kind of estimate where you are with respect to your answer qualities, and make sure you use that to improve yourself and improve your answers. Because at the end of the day, the examiner that is correcting your paper, can you tell me how many minutes they have? So on average, you would write about, how many pages would you write? On average, you write about 16, 17 pages, right? You write about 4,000, 5,000 words in the exam. Some people write definitely more, but on the average is about 4,000, 5,000 words. Can you tell me how many minutes the examiners take to correct on average? Can we have guesses? Any guesses?
40 minutes.
40 minutes. That's a good first guess. Chalo, let's have something else.
60 minutes?
60 minutes. Okay. Who else has not mentioned anything?
I would say hour and a half per paper.
Okay. Your answers are all wrong. The answer, the average time an examiner takes to correct your paper is 15 minutes. 15. So your pass or fail is determined in 15 minutes. I say this not to scare you. I say this to all students who take this, right? I say this only to inform you. And I say this to ensure that you're aware of the amount of effort that is required to convince the examiner that you know what you're doing, right? So at the end of the day, you're writing an exam and your job is not to give, I mean, in the sense, your job is to give the right answer, but it's not only to give the right answer. It is also to give the impression to the guy who's correcting the paper that you know what you're talking about, right? And the entire course that I have built and we have designed is exactly how do we get you guys to do that, right? So it's not just knowing the theory, it's not just applying the theory, but it's also writing the answers in a structure that the examiner understands, okay, yeah, this guy knows what he's talking about. He's got it right, right? So we will be looking at even things like where your most important point should be, right? So when we look at an answer, we'll be looking at the answer structure as well. So structure of the answer is also equally important when we write these exams. And this is very, very important in future as well. It helps you in the future because when you become an actuary, these are important qualities that differentiate actuaries from non-actuaries. The ability to have structured thinking, the ability to have a approach to answering a question which normal non-actuaries cannot do, right? And if you think about it, that's what the institute is training you for. They're not training you to do reserving. Everybody can do reserving, right? Do you think non-actuaries cannot do reserving? Like, is that even a question over here? Can non-actuaries do reserving?
They can.
Huh?
They can.
They can. Can non-actuaries do pricing?
Yeah.
They can.
Yes, they
Why
can.
cannot non-actuaries do pricing, right? Why cannot non-actuaries? I know a couple of non-actuaries who are head of reserving in big companies in India. I know them, right? So then the question comes as to why are we doing this then? We're doing this for a larger purpose. And that purpose is of course, knowledge, right? You are getting a deeper knowledge than a person who has not studied this, right? You are getting more nuance, which a non-actuary will not have. The bigger part, which is point B, is structured thinking. You will now be, once you pass this paper and once you have studied and once you have, applied yourself in the rigor of the exam, you will now be able to access structured thinking in a way that non-actuaries cannot do. And that is the differentiator between an actuary and a non-actuary. And that is why actuaries get paid the big bucks, right? Judgment and structured thinking. Judgment comes with experience and age. Structured thinking comes from your exams. As simple as that. There's no secret sauce to any of this. Clear, not clear, please feel free to ask questions. I recommend that you ask questions because then, I feel like, otherwise I feel like I'm talking and everybody is sleeping, right? So I'd rather you guys disturb me during the middle of the class.
Sunil, probably off the track, but I really wanted to ask this question.
Sure.
With the IA coming up with so many relaxations and changing their structures and everything,
Right.
I plan to take exams from both.
Okay.
Because it's just 1 month gap and you are anyway studying, so you can
What
you can
relaxations are
write.
IA coming up with?
Like that is mostly for CT papers though, like multiple choice questions and all that stuff.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
I will. Okay. I will ask you this question. All right.
Mhm.
Or I will ask you this exercise. So please do this because I had the same thought and I actually did this exercise. And then the relaxation point that you mentioned went away in my mind. Open an old CT3 paper, right? Open a CS1 paper, which was before the, the paper before the multiple choice thing came. And then open any CS1 paper from, like the past 2 or 3 diets where MCQs have been there. And you tell me personally, when you come to the next class, whether if you feel that a relaxation has actually happened. And if you still say yes, I'm not going to say anything. I will agree with you on that at that point, but I will not say anything, right? But just take a look at the kind of questions they have been asking for the past 2 diets. I am actually surprised that anybody is passing those papers.
Okay.
It
And what
is
about the passing marks though? Like there they have
the
50%
IAS passing
passing
marks.
marks.
See, the IAS passing mark is always 50. And they
Yeah.
fit a curve. They fit a curve to ensure that the pass mark is always kept at 50. Right? So I mean, in the sense, I used to, like, at least in the previous diets, I used to tell my students that IFoA, the exams are maybe they have a higher mean in terms of difficulty levels, right? Slightly more difficult than the IA questions. However, they don't have volatility. So you will not see like a big range or a big jump in difficulty levels from one session to the other. Whereas IAI, they might have a slightly lower mean in terms of difficulty, but they have a high amount of volatility. So one exam, you will see very easy questions. You'll see questions that have been lifted literally from the past IFoA papers. Sometimes you'll see questions that have been lifted from even the material, what is that? The practice questions in the back that you have after every chapter in the ACET book. I've seen questions lifted from there as well, like verbatim, not even changing the numbers. It's just cut and paste, right? But some diets have been so difficult, you will actually come out of the exam hall thinking, why am I in this profession? What am I doing with my life? You'll have existential crisis after seeing some of the question papers that you see, right? So IAI has been known in the past to be like this. However, over the past few diets, I have seen more standardization and in IAI. However, I will still reserve judgment until a few more diets have gone before I say that, yeah, IAI is very similar to IFoA, because IAI can also change very rapidly, right? So it's a younger organization as compared to IFoA, which is more mature. IAI tends to, like, let's say another president comes and then, they say, no, let's go back to the old ways. And you will start seeing a lot of the old methods coming back in. So things have been going extremely well with IAI. I would urge anybody who is also an IAI member to take the exams, because it can only help you. And one positive thing with IAI, I think they're going to make it 4 sessions now, right? It's no longer 2 sessions. You have 4
But that is just for C-level
PT.
papers, not for
Not for SP level, is it?
not for SP level.
Not for the
Okay.
SP
So
sessions.
SP is going to be 2 level, 2 subjects, 2
Yeah,
papers.
yeah.
Yes.
Same
Okay.
like May and November attempt.
Okay. Understood. All right. So yeah, I mean, in the sense, I would urge you, if you can give the exams, because at the very least, you can practice for your IFoA question, right? So I would definitely say it's worth it. And IAI questions, if you're practicing, IAI questions usually are more challenging because of the volatility. So if you go through the past IAI papers, you tend to get harder questions. So you'll be actually able to go through the questions. You'll be able to, if you solve them, you'll have a deeper understanding of the subject. So I would recommend it. Yes, for sure.
Got it. Yeah. Thank you.
All right. So just continuing our course structure. Basically, please go through all the content, online, offline lectures, and keep following the weekly targets. Go through the core reading and complete the practice questions. Then you'll be able to complete the questions that have been mentioned in all the X series questions. Then we will also do, like, as part of our exam, we'll also do past IFoA papers, past IAI papers, questions from that I would generate. I will call out the questions which I generate because I'm very proud of it. So I'll call it out, and I'll also call out how difficult it is as compared to, let's say, an IAI question or an IFoA question. And please complete your assignments as per the deadlines. I will show the deadlines shortly. And basically attempt all the tests in the stipulated timeframes. That only helps you. With respect to important dates, I've mentioned all the important dates here. These have been provided by the Academic Junction. So please make sure that you sit through all the things, make sure you complete all the assignments, complete all the mock tests, complete all the unit tests. That only helps you get a better understanding of the subject that you're studying. Content structure wise, there are 27 chapters. We are going to split them into 4 units, while the IFO has split it into 6 different units. We are splitting it into 4 different units. First part of the subject that we will do is very common to SP7 and SP8, which is insurance products, reinsurance products, regulations, markets, external environment, risk and uncertainty, data, and actuarial investigations. So those are the only things which are common. And afterwards, we will branch out into reserving. We will branch out into ALM. Then there's capital modeling. Then there is one theoretical chapter on reinsurance reserving, which does not, which is very theoretical. And finally, we'll have accounting methods and interpreting accounts, which is those two 40 and 48 pages, 48-page chapters that you see. Those are going to be perhaps the most important things that you will study, because those are the ones which will generate quite a little bit of marks for you. About me, again, like I mentioned, this was 2 years ago, so I've not updated it yet. Now it's 14, before it was 12. GI, InsurTech and Data Analytics. I currently work as the DGM for the actuarial team with Chola MS. I have an FIA with IFoA and an FIAI with IAI. I was the topper for SP7 and SP8, and I have been a very proud Arsenal supporter since at least 2002. So please, this concludes our introductory session on SP7, and I will open the floor for any questions. Is not necessary. I'll stop the recording. So this is